Tonight we begin with sort of a joyous celebration with Jesus and his disciples in the upper room as they prepare and have their Last Supper. It's sort of like what we celebrated on Sunday, where we began with this sense of joy and exuberance and celebration. And then the service takes kind of a hard right turn, and it becomes very somber. And at the end of the service, we strip away all of the decorations and the hangings, and we're left basically bare. And we face this through Good Friday, and then through the rest of the days. And then when we return, triumphantly return on Sunday, it will be resplendent again. But the important thing to remember in all of this is that before we get to Sunday, we have to get through Friday. And I think sometimes we miss that point. I think sometimes we miss the point that there's some agony in the story. There's some stuff in here that we don't necessarily like. But it's an important part of the story, and we can't ignore it. Because if we ignore that, the ending really doesn't make any sense. You know, I think I said Sunday that it's sort of like watching a mini-series, right? We watch the first night. It's great. It's exciting. But we skip the second night because it's the second night. We just skip it. And then we watch the third and last night. And the whole time we're scratching our head trying to figure out what's going on because we missed the whole part of it. Well, it's the same way with these days. If we skip one, we miss part of the story. So tonight we have two very important actions that Jesus performs with his disciples. And they come in reverse order in the readings. The gospel reading is about the foot washing. It's about being a servant for others. It's about not placing yourself above others. It's about doing for others. Washing one's feet when they entered your home in the first century was a very common thing to do. Normally by the door there was a chair and a basin of water. And the job to wash the people's feet belonged to the lowest member of the household. It might be the youngest. It might be someone else. But it was the custom that you did this. The roads were, after all, very dusty, and one's feet were dirty when they came into one's house. So for Jesus to do this, and we see Peter's objection. Peter objects to this idea that Jesus is going to do it. Because Jesus, he's a rabbi. He's a teacher. He's a learned person. He's almost at the top of society. And here he is, literally humbling himself to wash their feet. This is part of the new way that Jesus is leaving us, where he turns everything on its head. What's up is now down, what's down is now up, what's left is now right, what's right is now left. It's changing very quickly, and they don't grasp the idea. But he does this, and we see Peter's reaction, right? Peter being Peter. I like to talk about Peter, right? Peter being Peter. He's like, no, you're not going to do this. Jesus says, well, if I don't do this, you can't be part of the team. And then Peter goes completely in the opposite direction. Then wash all of me. Well, we won't be doing that tonight. Just going to do a little bit of your foot. But I think sometimes it's important for us to recreate these things, if you will, as a reminder, as a physical reminder of the actions. The second action of Jesus, and we get this in the letter from Paul to the Corinthians, is the institution of communion, the actual act of the Last Supper. And the words from Corinthians are the words that we use, that churches throughout the world on this night have used or will use when they serve the sacrament of communion. We call them the words of institution. They are the words that Jesus spoke. It's interesting that we find them in Paul's letter. We see them sort of in the gospel, but we get the whole text in the letter to the Corinthians. This is another example of Jesus being a servant to all of us, and him literally giving himself to us. gave himself to his apostles in the foot washing, and now through this action of communion, this sacrificial act of his own, he, by this action, is ending ritual sacrifice and flips it around on its head to now this sacrifice that we perform each time we have communion. So these two actions are sort of tied together, and that's why they're placed here in this service this evening as this visible reminder, a physical reminder of the fact that we're called to be servants first. Whatever happens after that happens. But first, we're called to be servants. So as we walk the rest of the journey through these days with Jesus, let us remember that it is about being a servant. I'll just say a quick word about the word Maundy, because it's this kind of weird word that comes to us from Latin down through Old English into this interpretation. Sometimes it's called Holy Thursday. We Reformed people tend to call it Maundy Thursday. Maundy comes from the mandate. It comes from Latin, mandatum. I won't say the rest of it because I can't pronounce the Latin phrases, but it comes from John's Gospel. And it is that phrase that Jesus commands us to love others as he has loved them. And by our love towards others, they will know that we are his followers. And it is the mandate, the command, the gospel command. It is actually the summation of the entirety of the gospel in the Maundy, in the mandatum, in the love everyone. And so we're called to be servants, and we're called to love everyone. And we see that played out in the service tonight.